All right, good evening, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. It is later in
I
my
can't
afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay, I got the thumbs up. I am
It's not
filling in
letting
for.
you. Hang on. I'll
Yep, no
try
problem.
rejoining. Can anyone else hear Nick?
Yes, fine.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, I can't hear anyone, so I'm going to rejoin.
okay. I'm filling in for Stephen today. He is, last I heard, at probably 30 to 35,000 feet above the earth. So welcome, everybody. My name is Nick. I've been an attendee in the past Arborist calls, so I'm thrust into the role of coordinating this one. So welcome. Let me share my screen with the slide deck, and we will get started. Let's see if it'll actually share this time. Share screen.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Cool.
And let me shift this into slideshow mode. All right, so just a reminder, this session is recorded. And this is our July 28th, 2022 Zcash Arborist call. We'll do this was basically the meeting invite or intro rather. A couple of quick pieces of information that Stephen had dropped in there for me to go through with you guys, and then we'll get into the status updates, both Zcashd and Zcashd, open discussion, and then wrap everything up. Okay, I will get the attendee chat enabled shortly. Just looking at the. So again, the Arborist calls are our bi-weekly calls where we can talk about contributions to the protocol development, upgrade timelines, R&D efforts, new protocol features, any unresolved issues, which I know obviously there's been a few that I'm sure we'll talk about tonight. And let's see, oops. Slack is not, or Zoom is not cooperating. There we go. And the goal here is to make the development process accessible to a wider set of participants. So we extend this to the larger community. If anyone's interested in learning about this, they can register. And if there's any agenda items that you have, I know Stephen always mentions this, and they'd like to present at a future session, you can reach out to Stephen at electriccoin.co. And he'll be happy to slot you in. I know he asked me to reinforce that. So the more interesting topics and the more folks that participate, the more engaging it is for everybody. Other ways you can get involved, the Zcash community grants, there's a link there as well. We have the Filecoin and the ECC grant program. That website is now available. It's there as well. And then obviously our research and development Discord channel for Zcash is available. So those are other ways you can get engaged. All right, let's get on to the status updates. First is Zcashd from the Zcash Foundation.
I think we have some people that are trying to get promoted.
Yep, I see that. Let me drop them in. Okay. Okay, everybody who put their hand up there, I think they should be able to join as panelists.
Hi, I'm Tiora, and I'm going to be giving the Zebra update today. So, yeah, recently we've been working on another beta release. There's been some extra load on the network. And it's the first time I think we've run that many blocks and transactions through Zebra. So what that's meant is we've needed to rewrite the concurrency along a number of parts of our verification stack, from right at the top where we feed blocks into the pipeline to right at the bottom where we verify proofs and signatures in parallel, and where we also are updating node commitment trees in parallel now. So Zebra is using Rayon for that. For those of you who've used Rust before, it's a Rust, threads, work scheduling library. So those are the big changes. And then the extra data usage has required a few changes to our tests and things like that. So as part of that work, we discovered places where Zebra was doing some redundant work. For example, we were deserializing entire blocks from our database to answer block headers requests and to answer block hashes requests. And so when the blocks are large, that of course takes a long time to deserialize 500 blocks just to calculate their hashes. So those are the major changes we've made. Happy to answer any questions about Zebra.
Thanks, Teo.
Yeah, thank you. All right, on the Zcashd side, I know there's a couple of folks here who could probably talk better than I can in terms of the technical changes for 5.2.0, which was the release that just went out yesterday. I don't know, Dara or Strad, one of you guys want to grab that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So as a reminder, the 5.1.0 release, which I think was about 4 weeks ago, 20 days ago, so just under 3 weeks ago. So since the last slot we had here at this time. So yes, we've simply been working on performance improvements for Zcashd, again, for dealing with the increased load on the network and to make it more stable as a backend for like Light Wallet D as it is used for light clients in the network. So the specific changes that we made in 5.2.0 towards this effort, we altered the way in which sapling and orchard were verified within the consensus rules. So now if a proof or signature has been checked at some point, either when a transaction comes in off the mempool or when a proposed block is checked via the I think it's the get block template API has a way to check candidates. If either of those have resulted in proofs being checked, then they will be cached, and then that validity will be used when if that transaction is then seen coming in via a block. And in fact, when it comes in via the block, the cache entry for that is cleared because it's likely we will not see it again. Modular reorgs, so there's a small reuse cost of reorgs, but the larger benefit of not keeping the cache size manageable keeps it all fine there. So that doesn't help rescan performance, but it helps steady state performance, and in particular, it's one of those changes that should help reduce block propagation times, because the cost of validation from a block being created with a proof of work, being submitted to the local node, being propagated to the network, and being validated by each hop before it gets repropagated, all adds up to the time it takes for a block to get from one a miner that finds a proof of work to all the other miners to start mining on that one. So this should reduce the orphan rates that miners have been seeing as higher in recent weeks. We then also made changes to the scanning side for the Zcashd wallet with multi-threaded and batched trial decryption for sapling and orchard, and then some other smaller changes, such as we now prune witness data properly. So we had done this in the mobile SDKs for quite some time, but in Zcashd that wasn't being done, and that coupled with the increase in shielded transaction volume meant that the cost of updating these witnesses you no longer needed was now becoming noticeable. So we now prune those once we're pretty certain that they'll never be needed again. I think that's all the main stuff. We also backported a few optimizations to like from upstream that had like, I think, single-digit % improvements, but everything's useful.
Just a detail on how that, sort of fairly sure it's not going to be used again. When you spend a note, 100 blocks after that, you can discard the witnesses, because we never roll back more than 100 blocks. So
yeah,
that's how that works.
Yeah. Deirdre, you've got a hand.
Yes. Are we explicitly going to describe that caching of proof verification is allowed in the instances that you described coming into the mempool and on queries and on propagation in the spec or in a zip or something like that?
I mean, as far as I can see, it's a transparent optimization. So the spec never says when you should do validation, really. You need to have validated stuff before you rely on that block as having been as being in the consensus chain, but that's it.
Should it be a note added to zip 401, which describes mempool operations?
That might be useful, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I guess, because it's something we do as part of mempool verification, but it's not. We don't only do it there.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
and also
for go on, Strad.
Also for reference, we have always parallel validated transparent signatures, because that was implemented in upstream Bitcoin.
Okay.
So we've always done some and we've both done parallel verification and caching, because both of those. So that has always been the case in Zcashd. So it's always
now
been
that I think about it,
in consensus rules, we've just expanded the usage.
Okay.
Now that I think about it, it might be useful to have a general note, basically saying what I've just said, that it just matters that validation has been done, not when it was done or what prompted it.
Yeah.
So
and then mention that optimization.
Yeah, it's consensus relevant to make sure the caching is implemented in the node correctly, so that you're not misreading the cache at the wrong time. But
yes,
but
that
it
leaves
is
a cue on when those items in the cache are invalidated or expired.
Yeah, the way that Zcashd does it is just when the same way that it was already being done. Basically, we've taken the caching system that Bitcoin had implemented for transparent signature caching, and we've just extended it for reused it for the orchard and sapling components. So the cache invalidation happens when a block is connected.
Got it.
Because if once it's been connected, that assuming no rollbacks, that you will never need the cached validities again for that particular node setup. If you do a reindex, well, then you're re-verifying everything anyway.
So that's invalidated within the 100 block reorg limit.
It's validated. It's invalidated immediately. Yes. So
Okay.
if there is a reorg, then then the way that Zcashd is currently doing it, there will be extra validation going on. But that's a potential future optimization. But that's just a performance optimization in the face of regular reorgs. So if you're not seeing a high reorg rate, then that shouldn't have much effect.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm just checking the chat channels as well. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, Strad, and Dara for jumping in there. Next up, we have an open discussion. If anybody wants to bring up any other topics or anything, Conrado.
Hi, I'd just like to mention that we are working on a draft zip for specifying frost, which is a threshold signature to be used in Zcash. So the draft is ready. It was reviewed on last week's ZipSync. There was a lot of very useful feedback, and I think it's practically done. We just need to clean it up, and we're waiting for Chelsea to write down the security proof. But other than that, it's done. So if you're curious, take a look, and we welcome any feedback on that. And we're looking forward to officially submitting the zip. And that's it.
And
Okay, thank
I'll throw a link in here. There it is. By we are not blocking the zip on the security proof, but it is getting written down in parallel and will be linked in to help motivate the security and privacy properties of our variant of Frost when it is done. So that is happening, but not blocking.
Cool.
And I see one more hand up, Addy.
Yeah, a while back, Conrad from ZF, I think, brought up the testing that was done to run light wallet D along with Zebra-D. Was there some more testing done around that? Is that coming around well?
I can answer that if you'd like. So we're testing with Light Wallet D in CI, and we're just fixing a bunch of bugs that have come up due to their extra load on the network, mainly timing bugs and things like that. And so, yeah, it's coming along well. And so we think it works, but we haven't actually done, I don't think, a lot of manual testing lately. So we should definitely be spinning up some wallets and doing some testing at some point.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so there have been suggestions on maybe we want to increase fees to disincentivize or change the structure of fees to disincentivize the kind of extra load on the network that we're seeing. So the load we're seeing at the moment is very large transactions, and they still only pay the default fee, regardless of size. So I think Chris suggested making the fee depend on the total number of inputs and outputs. So that would be transparent or shielded inputs and outputs. So I'm just interested in sort of what people's general view is on that.
So I can maybe say a bit of things. So I like that idea because it directly charges more to the folks who take up more space in the blockchain, because really the transaction size increases by so much when you increase the number of outputs, and restricting the low fee for simple payments, maybe 1 in 2 out or 2 in 2 out, that would still make it cheaper and usable for most of the folks.
Yeah, so there would be the default fee will be based on the number of inputs and outputs with a floor. So the floor would probably be set so that a 2 input, 2 output transaction is at the floor. So that's the one reason to make it dependent on the number of inputs and outputs rather than the transaction size is that transparent inputs and outputs are that they contribute less to the transaction size in bytes, but we don't want to disincentivize shielded transactions relative to transparent transactions. So making it based on the inputs and outputs doesn't do that.
Got it. So basically, through even the transparent transactions, is it?
Yes. Well, that's one of the proposals we're considering. The proposal that Chris made.
I seem to recall that when we looked at this before, a couple of years ago now, we had a document with various ideas and proposals.
We did, yes.
Has that been updated? Is it possible to publish that?
I haven't looked at it recently. I can dig it up.
I think that one of the motivations for this particular proposal is it's a simple change that could be readily adopted by the ecosystem. And I think that at some point we likely will want something like, dynamic fee adjustment according to EIP 1559, but that doesn't preclude us from making a change of this sort in the nearer term to try to deal with the current situation, and just try to make costs proportional to the cost that's being imposed, on the network relative to, say ordinary, small 2 and 2 out transactions. And so my proposal that I had put out was that essentially that we consider the 2 in 2 out transaction to be that's 4 total inputs and outputs. And so if we charge 250 Zat per input and output with a floor of 1,000 Zat, then that would keep us at our current fee rate. That would impose, on someone that is using the chain at the rate that we're currently seeing, that would take the the cost for that usage from, say, tens of dollars to thousands of dollars. DARA has also suggested at the same time essentially reverting the previous fee change that where we changed from 10,000 Zat to 1,000 Zat. If we were to do that, but then keep the same fee schedule, then it could make the use of the chain in this fashion essentially economically unviable unless someone really wants to throw a lot of money at it. So there are a few different knobs we can turn. Ultimately, though, I think that those hard constants are the thing that would ideally be tuned by an algorithm that responds to how full the blocks are, and we might want to do something with an EIP 1559 style fee adjustment where we could use a base fee with either base fees being returned to the future emittable monetary base or something like that.
I did find, I think this is the document you were talking about, Dodger, but it's from March 2017. It's not very long though. There's not much detail in it. I don't think go on.
That sounds a bit old. I'm pretty sure that this is one that Bam Bam.
Right.
It was either me or Bam Bam who started it.
Yeah, I think the one from 2017 was one, like I remember having a discussion about fees in 2017 sometime. So maybe that was from that one.
Yeah,
I'd have to have a look.
When did the wood chipper thing come out?
That was later. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure this was later because I don't think Bam Bam was with ECC in 2017, was he?
No, there's a longer document about DOS attack mitigations.
Yeah, that's the one.
That was from May 2019. I don't know whether I can share a link to this because I would need to check whether.
Yeah, I understand. I'd be surprised if there was anything sensitive in there, but
I can't see anything immediately sensitive. It looks like policy stuff, but I would need to review it before.
Yeah. If you could do
Showing
that,
like-
and I'd suggest as well copying it to a new document so there's no edit history there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because yeah, we obviously spent a lot of time and put a lot of brain power into thinking about exactly
No,
this problem back then.
I completely understand. And actually, this document has a lot of stuff that is potentially relevant now. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in general, yeah, you know,
we have actually implemented. Yeah, we have actually implemented part of it. So part of it is just ZIP 401, which is implemented both Zcashd and Zebra.
I think the big question is, how would we enforce this? What's the plan for enforcing this? Will we enforce this in consensus rules?
So
Not initially.
Not initially.
Okay.
I think that initially we would want wallets to update to follow this fee proposal, and then at that point we could also encourage miners to use. We could update the defaults that miners use for selection from the mempool to use that fee, and then sometime later we could increase the default fees for transaction relay between nodes. But it doesn't matter that much, I don't think, if we keep the fee relay, the relay fees low, and give miners the option to choose what transactions that they want to include. I presume that if we adopted Dara's proposal for fees, that miners might actually start becoming incentivized to, to pick and choose among which transactions they want to include.
It seems to recall that one of the things in that document will be something about dropping transactions from the mempool.
That's ZIP 401.
Okay, right.
That's already implemented.
Okay.
We got a
Yes, you're correct. That was first. So we first brainstormed that in that document, I believe.
so we got a couple hands up. Strat, I see you have yours up.
Yeah, that was something that then in the 10 minutes interim, Chris ended up partly covering. But I just wanted to point out that we can't make any changes in the full nodes like Zcashd until wallets have had time to make changes. So it's not just that we would prefer that order, but if we were to deploy a change that with the intention of improving the UX of users, like trying to have miners select transactions according to a different fee mechanism, without wallets having updated first, that's just going to have the effect of causing the default fee size transactions that wallets are currently creating to be down selected in a way that we don't want to happen.
Yes.
So there is a specific order that something like this would need to be deployed in if we chose to do it.
Yeah, in general, if you're increasing fees, then you need to change wallets first. If you're decreasing fees, then you do it in the other way around.
Okay, let's see. Next up, I have Addy. I think in the right order.
I just want to respond to Chris's point, why I'm not a fan of the EIP 1559 style of fees. It really makes it unpredictable what the fees will be, and it also hampers the privacy aspect. I mean, one of the reasons we have same fees for the same shielded transactions is to make all transactions look alike. And there's also the element of remnant dust. So if the fees cannot be known how much will remain in an address, you can't send all of the ZEC out of one address. So that's one portion of the problem.
That is an issue. So if you make the default fee dependent on the number of inputs and outputs, then you're essentially saying that you can't spend a note that is worth less than that per input fee unless you spend it opportunistically when you would otherwise have spent a dummy.
Right, you can still add more ZEC to that logic and still clean up the wallet. But with EIP 1559, you can never really get to zero because it'll be all dynamic and it'll hamper
Right.
privacy. And the second
Uh,
point about reverting
well-
the fees.
With respect to the privacy concerns, EIP 1559 is built on an assumption that that the minor tips will be taken into account and that those are discretionary. It would be entirely possible to make the adjustments non-discretionary and simply based upon block capacity, how much of the block capacity is being consumed.
Which will never be known for sure. It has to be predicted and depends on what happens in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to be discussed if we were going to do an 1559 like mechanism, and we probably wouldn't want to adopt everything that's in that heap, which is partly why we're suggesting this simpler and sort of more limited change.
Yeah, I do support that. And to the other point of reverting the fees from 1,000 back to 10,000, I don't think that's going to hamper the guy whoever is making the 1,100 outputs transactions. It's just a 10x increase in cost, so it's not too much.
Well, so if you look at the effect on the attack cost of, assuming this is an attack, the effect on the attack cost of doing both the per input and output fee and the 10 times increase, that the cost is significantly greater. So it's
it's effective. If it's effectively 1,000-fold increase for the base proposal, and 100,000-fold increase for the combined proposal.
Sorry,
so
10,000
or 10,000. Excuse me. So you would effectively go from a $20 attack to a $200,000 attack.
So is that really necessary? Is that really necessary to go from 10 to 200,000, or can it just be from 10 to $20,000? So my point being that why change the current default of 1,000 Zats when people are used to it?
I mean, well, why change the default of 10,000 Zats when people were used to that?
For two in, two out. So starting with that base rail, why I have to do both the things?
So first of all, the 10 times is just one potential option. It could be 4 times, 6 times, whatever. Another thing to consider here is that the fiat prices decrease significantly. So if you look at the equivalent fiat fee, then you wouldn't actually be paying very much. You would be paying a few US cents with this proposal.
Yeah, that's basically the simpler way of keeping it same for 2 in, 2 out, while exponentially increasing it only for those who need very high outputs, high number of outputs.
Oh, I think we want it to be linear, not exponential, but linear will be good enough compared to what we're doing today.
Yes. Yeah, if you make it super linear, then that incentivizes the attacker to just use small transactions. It doesn't actually help very much.
Yeah.
All right, let's see my list of hands. Paku.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on some practical deployment things about the fee change. Unlike web, or probably the Zcashd node falls under some similar dynamic, we can't assume that mobile users will actually update their applications. And in our case, like we mostly use, like Zcash mostly uses non-custodial wallets, which are like really not either like logging or using much of the typical upgrade mechanisms that other client-facing applications have in the mobile space. So for us, it would be really hard to actually even though we coordinate an ecosystem-wide upgrade of all the SDKs and for the case of wallets using the CLI Lite version, we won't be sure that users will be able to use their wallets when they open it up, because the wallets don't force upgrade. They don't force users to upgrade to keep working. So they might face a situation where they will open their application, they will try to do a transaction, and the fee that will be used by that application, by that software, will be less than the one we are now enforcing. So
That's
yeah.
That's true.
So
but at the moment, users are having trouble using wallets that haven't been updated anyway
right,
because of the
yeah,
performance issues. So
and
they,
also
they
yeah,
will need to update.
and
yeah.
also
But probably if we can think of a solution that can increase the cost of the attack without affecting the regular average transaction that the mobile wallets do, that it's really particular.
well, Paku, I want to point out that we do actually have
Yeah.
that problem already with V5 transactions. If a wallet hasn't been updated to be able to parse V5 transactions, then their wallet is going to be not working correctly anyway. So we already
Okay,
have
yeah,
that
I'm
situation.
just pointing out these nuances to have them, to factor them in, and then we
Yeah.
can like decide what's best. Like the situation is really complicated. Just I wanted that just this factor, but yeah, I don't know what the solution is for sure.
No, that issue is going to sort of raise itself again in future. So we do need to think about it in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ideally one thing that we could do is hopefully make fee computation something that is a bit more modular, and that way, if in the future we adopt a fee adjustment algorithm, hopefully we could make it a lower impact
Yeah,
change.
that's a good opportunity. Like since we're going to roll updates we're going to roll updates that kind of mitigate some of the problems we're having right now. Like we expect like high adoption of those updates. It will be interesting to see if we can, I don't know, make the fees some parameter, something that is easier to change by the wallets or the clients of the SDKs in the near future.
Next up, oh, Nate, sorry, he's been waiting patiently.
Yeah, so now I have two items, but one is for this issue where Paku just brought up, it feels to me like it might be helpful if we had kind of a general purpose protocol versioning system or something for wallets, so that once they have this feature, they pay attention to the blockchain, and somewhere in there is a signal about like a wallet protocol version or a wallet behavior version, so that they can notify their users if they can detect that they're out of date. I don't know how feasible that is, but I guess
that sounds
what I'm wondering is, I'm wondering, like, we might have similar issues for something besides fees, like we already have it for the transaction format. So if we can make a general purpose thing, that might be helpful. The other thought I had was the proposal to change fees might make sense in the short term, but also I wanted to recognize like how nice it is to have the convention that every shielded transaction just has a flat fee in terms of UX, like, because then it's just easy for users to understand. Users don't necessarily anticipate how many inputs or outputs their transactions might use when they make a request. but that ideal, it feels to me like it can't survive the situation where blocks become full for any reason, whether it's normal adoption or like pathological usage. So longer term, I feel like we need to start grappling with those UX issues sooner or later for wallet users, and like helping them transition away from the nice ideal we've had of just a flat fee.
I mean, we could reduce the maximum transaction size. So before sapling, the maximum transaction size was 100 kilobytes instead of 2 megabytes. Now that obviously precludes some use cases, so we would need to think very carefully before doing that.
The concern I have is anything we change with the protocol like that, like if we're changing this fee structure or we're changing maximum transaction sizes or whatever, users are just using wallets and they're just requesting the wallet to do stuff for them. And they don't have clear visibility into why, like why won't a transaction work or what will the fee be? And each time we adjust that, it's going to be confusing. So I just want to make sure that we're paying attention to UX as we're thinking about these proposals, and not just the UX impact of each proposal, but if we imagine, okay, down the road, we're going to have to do more stuff, right? So is there any way we can like help users along that path? So for example, I think anchoring on the fixed fee has been nice, but it's a little bit of a dead end, or a little bit, it's sort of like UX technical debt. Like we've gotten people to anchor on that, but it can't last forever. So
yeah, I guess that we have like kind of like term mitigation things to do, and then in the like middle long run we can do more like elaborated things. Something I see about like if we do some of a factoring in the number of inputs and outputs, is that I could totally like troll your wallet, because I could send you like a lot of small transactions to make your wallet really expensive to use, because I know that your wallet is not good at picking up nodes of a certain shape, so I could game your wallet to make every transaction really expensive for you or something like that. But yeah, for now, I guess that we need to, sort out the situation and then improve it.
Okay.
Yeah, the other lever we potentially have is for miners to just produce smaller blocks until we implement other mitigations. So there is actually an existing option in Zcashd. I think it's called max block size or block max size. That's right. So block max size in bytes. So if you set that, for example, to 1 million, then that would have the size of blocks. I do recommend that you also set block priority size proportionately. So say if you have block max size, then also have block priority size.
All right, I see Chris next. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, and by the way, that option only matters for miners.
Chris, you're still muted.
My hand is old.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So next on my list, Addy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to second, and I agree with what Nate and Paco said. We have to think in terms of UX. People have gotten used to the low fees of Zcash, and they have an expectation to use it for transactions and exchanges and sending money. So there should be like a middle ground solution for now, because the blocks are still not full. And then there should be a long-term solution, which I think definitely is important, because once ZSAs come around in the next year or two, definitely the blocks will be full.
I mean, the blocks are full at the moment during this this period of high load.
They're not full all the time, but we
well,
have seen prolonged periods of full blocks.
Yeah.
And Nate.
Yeah, so full blocks is especially an important case to consider for usability. And I'm actually fairly concerned that we don't have a good UX story if blocks, if the mempool is growing. My understanding of how shielded wallets behave now is that they use a fixed fee, so that's easy to understand. But what will occur is transactions, like I believe maybe a random subset of transactions will be selected from the mempool. So the user experience is they will submit a transaction and it won't confirm, and they don't have a good way to predict like when it will confirm. If it has an expiry height, that's probably better, because then at least in that state, the wallet will eventually be able to say, oh, sorry, it didn't succeed, which is bad, but in my opinion, it's not as bad as, oh, sorry, your funds are locked up and we can't tell you when the transfer will occur, and it still might not occur indefinitely, which is what occurs in Bitcoin. But even in Bitcoin land, if blocks are full, wallets are already, like, people are used to the user experience that their wallet tries to guess a good fee, and then they click yes or no, and sometimes that still doesn't work out well. But because wallets can adjust fees, the user experience allows users to decide, okay, do I want to pay high fees now or give up on this and wait for fees to go lower? So I am really concerned if the mempool starts growing, and I don't think there is much in the way of preventing that happening. So in my opinion, this is like a UX need that is actually somewhat shorter term. Like, we don't see that happening now, but it could easily happen. And when it does, the UX is going to be bad. So it's separate from this issue of many shielded outputs, but it's a different UX impact. I want to proactively anticipate it while we're discussing changing fees and stuff.
The blockchains have fixed capacities. I mean, the stuff you can do to aggregate transactions in the longer term using, for example, using recursive proofs or proof aggregation. But
there's a difference. No. There's a very concrete, important difference right now between Zcash shielded wallets and Bitcoin style wallets, which is Bitcoin style wallets allow users to adjust fees. So if fees are high, they can decide, oh, I really need to like do this transfer, so I'm going to pay $10 or whatever. With shielded wallets, they can't decide that. All they can do is say send, and it will not succeed. So that's a concern for me.
And
the relevant thing to that point is that transparent style wallets, like the multi-coin wallets that have Zcash support, also rarely, if ever, set transaction expiry. Because there is no such thing in Bitcoin, and so they just I have seen implementations that just hard code that field to 0 and don't in their parser.
Dodger, you hand up.
Two things. First of all, I want to point out that I think Quit Diffie is behind Nathan, and secondly, what about adding functionality to like Wallet D to advise the wallet what the fee should be?
if we implement a fee adjustment algorithm at some point, then that seems totally reasonable.
Well, if it was an adjustment algorithm based on like the public chain data, then it would be not just be feasible, it would be necessary, because LightWallet is the source of chain data for Light clients.
Well, I mean, the Light client could run the same algorithm themselves based upon the data that they have from the chain, but there's no reason
because
for-
they don't see everything. Compact blocks
I
only
mean, it
include a
depends.
subset of transaction data, and particularly it skips out transparent data, which would also have to be included in the calculations.
Yeah, it depends what the calculation depends on.
Yeah.
We could have the node do it and then pass it to LightWallet for passing on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would work as
whatever
well.
information was necessary for from chain data for a node to be able to make those fee decisions would necessarily be passed through LightWallet. Yes. Passing additional data is maybe something that could be done as well if there is useful additional data. And again, we can pass whatever we want under the current LightWallet trust model, which is we trust the LightWallet to give accurate chain view.
So an advantage of the LightWallet passing on the suggested fee directly rather than the information needed to calculate the fee is if you want to change the fee calculation, then you only have to change LightWallet, or if it's getting its information from Zcashd, you only have to change Zcashd, which you have to do anyway.
All right, I think that's everybody that had their hands up. Anybody else, anything else we want to bring up? All right. Oh, sorry, Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So I am a fan of longer term, something like EIP 1559, but better, and like for Zcash, that has better privacy and works well with like the LightWallet protocols. So I want to talk about that more, especially with Audie, since he had those concerns. But I don't want to do that right now. I'm just letting people know I would like to do that.
Yeah, I think I suggested we should maybe have a meeting with wallet developers to discuss these things in more detail.
Yeah. Also, you can go to the Zcash R&D Discord. The channels I would suggest would either be you could talk in the Zips channel. Actually, there's a 1559 channel, which would actually be the place to talk about this. So I think that's what it was. Yeah, that was so. Yeah, the 1559 channel on Zcash R&D Discord is the place to further discussion.
All right, so we are just under the hour. I think another call coming up in 2 weeks, and obviously a small conference where I'm sure I'll get to see some of you in person in lovely and very cool Las Vegas. And then, yep, I just got a comment, the call recording, we'll have that available as well. So thank you all for bearing with me as I tried to do my best to match up with Stephen here with 50,000 windows open back and forth. I'm glad to meet you guys all. Hope to see you in person. And if there's nothing else, have a great evening.
And if anyone's at RustConf, then you might see me there as well.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I see you.
Yeah.
See you next week.